So treat your body more kindly now. Give it more pleasure now. Love it or even like it more now. Exercise it in a way that your body loves to move instead of punish yourself with exercise.
Welcome to the Food Matters Podcast, your home for health and wellness. My name is James Colquhoun, filmmaker and founder of foodmatters.com, and I am your host on this journey to inner and outer transformation. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a short moment to talk to you about the Food Matters Nutrition Certification Program, because studying nutrition completely changed my life. It helped me to heal my father, get him off 6 different medications, lose 50 pounds, and completely regain and transform his life and health. But the problem is that we're not really taught about nutrition in our schooling system. The medical profession is rarely pronouncing the facts of using nutrition as medicine. And we have a fast food industry that thrives off misleading consumers. So if you're looking to learn about how to use nutrition as medicine to either heal yourself or a loved one or help prevent chronic disease, or you want to take that next step on your study and nutrition journey and become a certified nutrition coach, then the Food Matters Nutrition Certification Program is for you. This is a 10-week or self-paced, internationally accredited certification program designed to take you through some of the most important topics on the latest research when it comes to nutrition and natural healing, including gut healing, autoimmune conditions, balancing hormones naturally, detoxification, biochemical individual approaches to nutrition. Plus, it brings together the best that we know about nutrition science and anthropological research, and bringing these two approaches together to help you cut through the confusion about what to eat and what to avoid for optimum health. To find out more about the Nutrition Certification Program, plus to download your curriculum guide, head to foodmatters.com/study. You can pause this right now. It will only take you 30 seconds. That's foodmatters.com/study, or you can head to the show notes for more information. Have a beautiful day. Hello, everybody. It's James here, and I'm so excited for this conversation today because we are going to be talking about the future of nutrition. And it's going to be less about what you're putting in your mouth and more about how you think before you decide about what you put in your mouth. My guest today is Mark David, a long-time connection, colleague, friend. He is the founder and primary teacher of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. He's a visionary leader and teacher in this space, and also he's written some best-selling books, including Nourishing Wisdom and The Slow Down Diet. You can find out more about Mark and his work at www.psychologyofeating.com. Okay, so let's jump straight in. Mark, first of all, welcome back to the show. Nice to have you here again.
Thanks so much, James. I am looking forward and have been looking forward to this conversation.
Nice. Great. So if people want to know more about Mark's backstory, etc., make sure to check out that original podcast and interviews that we've done together. But jumping straight into it, Mark, cravings are such a big issue for people. And, there's like a nutritional approach to it, which is like, okay, you're eating sugar, so you've got all this fungus, so you're craving more sugar. But you have a bit of a different understanding of it from a psychological standpoint. Tell me, why do so many people experience food cravings, this need to just have something?
Cravings are interesting creatures, and they can be complex. And you mentioned sugar, and I think that might be a great example to start with, because you already hinted that something, there could be a metabolic reason why a human being craves sugar. If we have yeast overgrowth in the gut, that can easily cause us to crave sugar. Various kinds of dysbiosis and altered ecology in our gut will definitely drive a sugar craving. But we can also have a sugar craving that's driven from a nutritional standpoint because we're low in protein or low in fat. Many people who are, let's say, dieting, they want to lose weight. And a lot of people think, well, if I'm going to diet and if I'm going to lose weight, then fat in food must be the culprit because fat must make my body fat, which is sort of a false nutritional belief. But still, So they'll go very low fat and or low protein. And interestingly enough, a lot of people will crave the opposite of what they need. So they won't necessarily crave the thing they're deficient in. Sometimes we do, but a lot of times the body is just screaming for nutrition. And really, what it says is hungry. The brain just yells hungry. And then we might reach for something like sugar. The other interesting thing is, we have probably 4 or 5 different kinds of taste buds firing on our tongue. And we have more sweet taste buds than any of the other kinds: sweet, salty, sour, bitter. And most of those sweet taste buds are in the center of the tongue towards the front, which is where most of your food tends to hit. And they're there. God put them there. And, why do we have all these sweet taste buds? Essentially, they're sitting around waiting for something sweet. Mother's milk to a baby is very sweet. And oftentimes, what happens is sweet gives us such a pleasure hit that, let's say my life isn't so interesting. Let's say my life is boring. Let's say my life is difficult. Let's say my life is stressful. I don't want to be in difficult boredom, stress, anxiety, fear, anger. I don't want to be in uncomfortable emotions. I want to get out of it as quickly as possible. And something like sugar, something sweet, is an immediate pleasure hit. It takes me out of my discomfort. And there's a reason why somebody would crave sugar, because we have the association: feel bad, eat sugar, feel better. So
Mm,
whenever I'm not feeling good about myself, I'm having emotions that I can't manage, I'm going to reach for whatever can help me undo, at least in the moment, those uncomfortable sensations. And for a lot of people, sugar is one of the best, fastest ways to do that, because the pleasure chemistry release is instant and it's deeply
mm.
genetic. So many people also, if I'm meal skipping, if I'm meal skipping because I work really hard, or I'm a stay at home mom and I'm dealing with the kids and I'm not focused on my eating, what often happens is, if I miss meals, I'm not focused on eating. Or if I'm stealth dieting, a lot of people won't say they're dieting, but they'll purposely eat a tiny breakfast, or they'll eat a small lunch, like just a salad. And predictably, the body is nutritionally deprived. It's deprived in vitamins, minerals, it's deprived in macronutrients, it's deprived in nutrition, it's deprived in energy. And at some point, the brain's going to scream hungry. But once again, the brain isn't always smart enough to say, hey, you've been skipping meals. You're not getting enough nutrition throughout the day. And when the brain screams hungry, we will often resort to reaching for the thing that gives us the most immediate sense that I've eaten something. So, and for a lot of people, that association is simply with sugar.
Wow. I mean, that's a big realization. And I think one thing that I've started to learn a little bit more about on my food journey is the relationship between emotions and eating, and you're highlighting it in a big way here now. But suppose somebody is experiencing stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, and then there's a chocolate bar or a sweet in the house. How do they because what I've been taught is to just sit with that, to acknowledge it and sit with it, but not reach for it. But how do people not reach for it? I mean, that seems the most impossible task in the world.
I 100% agree. I'm thinking, I've had so many clients that describe what I'm about to say, but I'm thinking of one in particular. She came to see me because she said, I'm addicted to chocolate and I eat it throughout the day. I'm sitting at work and I can just go through a whole day and eat chocolate at my lunch meal and for my snacks. And then I come home and I have chocolate, and I'll have dinner. And she said, I want to get over my chocolate cravings. I want to get rid of my chocolate addiction. And as I got to know this client and just got to know, okay, who are you? What do you do? Tell me about your job. Tell me about your life. And she's in her late 40s. She's been at the same job that she doesn't like. She doesn't have a big social circle. She's not married. She wishes to be in a relationship, but she doesn't want to date because she feels she can't date because she has to lose 10 pounds. And she can't lose 10 pounds and still until she gets rid of her chocolate craving. And what I'm hearing is you have a life where the best thing going is chocolate. Because when you watch her and listen to her think about chocolate, her eyes light up. She has this big smile on her face. Even though she's telling me, I got to get rid of my chocolate addiction, she smiles when she says it because chocolate brings her pleasure. And it's the only time in a conversation I can get her to smile is actually talking about chocolate. What kind of chocolate do you eat? What's your favorite chocolate? So the reality is she needs chocolate because chocolate has become a symbolic substitute for goodness, for sweetness, for pleasure, for experience, for I love my life. So I can't take chocolate away from her, but what I can do is be in a conversation about how can you make your life more compelling? How could you make it more worth living? What do we got to do about work? Do you need to look for a new job? Can you operate in your job so that you're enjoying it more? What are your hobbies? Do you like to travel? How do we get you out? How do we get you socializing? Because that's going to make your life, begin to be as good as chocolate. Have moments that are as good as chocolate. Otherwise, she's going to revert to chocolate because she's hungering for the good life. And for a lot of people, the good life, we only experience it through food. So she can't use willpower. She's tried it. People aren't dumb. They know, okay, I don't want to eat this. And I say I don't want to eat this, but oh my God, I've got to eat this. And that compelling energy that makes us want to eat it is really driven by, to me, a deeper hunger. And the deeper hunger is for a life worth living. A deeper hunger is for my best self expression. How could I be who I came here to be? That's where the action is. We weren't put on this earth to overcome our chocolate addiction or our sugar addiction. We're put on this earth to be our best self. And that's the task at hand. So chocolate is actually her solution. It's not her problem. It's the solution to her problem, which is not quite the best solution. Problem being, I'm not living my best life. I don't have pleasure. I don't have satisfaction. I don't have goodness.
Wow, what a realization. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this that are probably then thinking or wishing to ask you, Mark, as I am, how can people determine the difference between a craving that is nutritional or biochemical versus a craving that is emotional because there's a lack of joy or there's a lack of purpose or there's a lack of something in their life and they're filling it with this food?
Yes, great question. I always go to the easiest places to solve first. So if there's a problem, let's go to the most likely and easiest solutions to figure out first. So I'm going to look, can this be a nutritionally driven craving, a metabolically driven craving? So if it's a nutritionally or metabolically driven craving, particular as it relates to sugar and or chocolate, that generally means I'm lacking in protein, or it means I'm lacking in fat, or I'm lacking in overall calories. So you have to look in the mirror and say, am I the kind of person? Am I skipping meals? Am I stealth dieting? Am I not eating enough because I think food is my enemy? Why would somebody think food is my enemy? Because fat on my body is my enemy. Nobody wants to be fat.
Mm.
Nobody wants to have extra weight. But how does that extra weight get there? Well, according to science, it seems to be that the food puts it there. So if I can limit my food, I'm limiting my body fat. So a lot of people are actually walking around with the toxic nutritional belief that food itself is my enemy. And we're trying to push it back. And when we push away food, we end up craving it. And we'll often go to the lowest common denominator of our cravings, which is what we reached for in childhood, which is something sweet or something chocolatey. Um, so I'm going to first look to, am I dieting? Am I stealth dieting? Am I imbalanced in my macronutrients, particularly protein and fat? Some people believe that since food might be my enemy, because fat on my body's my enemy, I shouldn't have any pleasure in my diet. Because if I eat a pleasurable food, then I'm going to want to eat more of it. So that's a
Mm,
fear for a lot of people. The fear is if I eat a little bit of the chocolate, I'm going to want to have a lot. And what happens is there are a lot of people who are on a very low pleasure diet. They don't enjoy what they eat, or they're on a weight loss diet that is just, it's boring, it's uninteresting, it's not nourishing them. So if you're on a lifeless, pleasureless diet, then that will drive you to seek pleasure, because all creatures, all human beings, we're driven at the most primitive level of the central nervous system to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And when we're eating, we're seeking the pleasure of food, we're avoiding the pain of hunger. But that pleasure is actually a requirement. We're humans, and we require an experience of eating. So if I don't get pleasure in my life, or certainly in my food, I'm going to seek it um, from sugar. So I'm going to look to those places first. I'm going to look to the nutritional places. And if it seems, after asking those questions and being curious, and maybe making a few experiments, maybe I can begin to eat more healthy protein, eat more healthy fat. For a lot of people, if they're eating just a simple, poor quality diet without enough good nutrition, without enough quality nutrition, without enough organic nutrition, that can drive us to a sugar craving, or that can drive us to a sweet craving. So look to improve the quality of your diet. And if a little bell goes off in your head when you hear somebody like me saying, is sugar the best thing you got going in your life? Is that giving you all your goodness? Then okay, great. Let's do a life review.
mm,
How are my relationships? How is my work? Do I feel a sense of purpose? Do I want to be alive? Where else can you get pleasure from? Some people just don't have a long enough pleasure list. Like for me, I know, yeah, certain foods give me pleasure. And I could easily turn to them if I didn't have other pleasures. So I can go out in nature, and that feeds me. I can jump in a cold stream that's 10 minutes from my house. That feeds me. I can listen to music. That'll feed me. I can go get a hug from my fiance. That'll feed me. I can watch some inspirational videos. That'll feed me. So I have ways that I've learned, oh, that feeds me, other than just the literal food feeds me, sugar feeds me.
you use this word, jumping in a cold stream feeds me. Watching an inspirational movie feeds me, because you're associating experiences with nourishment, which I think is a beautiful idea. But one of the things you touched on in your explanation was this idea that people have these negative beliefs and associations around food. And I think this is so big. And I'd like for you to explain to me what some of the common negative beliefs that people have around food are, and how would they get them. One you mentioned is that, food makes me fat, and that I have to limit it, eating it. But that was probably because the environment says that, because models don't eat much and they're thin, you know. But from my work with Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza, they talk about beliefs being instilled from a very young age. So, what are some societal beliefs, or what are some maybe some limiting beliefs that people may have that they may not know that they have around food, that you might be able to, through this conversation, enlighten us to?
I so love this question. I think the number one, what I'm going to call a toxic nutritional or toxic dietary belief, number one on the list that I see so many people have that they don't even realize, is food is my enemy. And
Mm.
once again, food is my enemy is driven by our fear of fat, our fear of getting fat, our fear of body fat, because we're told that unless you're perfect, unless you have the ideal body, especially for women, you're not going to be lovable, you're not going to be acceptable, and you're not going to win. Like the winners are the one who look a certain way, they weigh a certain amount, and they have a certain shape. So all of a sudden, you think, well, oh, I don't have the perfect body. I don't have the ideal body that the movie stars have, but I can get there by manipulating my food. And food is in the way of me getting there. So I have to limit my food. Food is the enemy. Now, the moment the brain senses enemy, what happens? We go into a fight or flight stress response. That's how we're designed. If right now somebody walks into your house and they're clearly the enemy, they have a weapon, you are in a full blown stress response. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, blood is shunted away from your midsection to your arms and legs for quick fighting and thinking. Um, and your digestive system completely shuts down because you don't need to be digesting your food when you're fighting off an enemy. On top of that, you're producing, if I'm in an ongoing stress response day in and day out, that's not necessary. Food is my enemy. Now I'm hungry 3, 4, 5 times a day. So if I'm going to eat 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, that's 3, 4, or 5 times a day that I'm in a stress response because food is my enemy and I have to encounter it on my plate. And I'm worried, oh my God, this is going to make me fat. This is going to go to my hips. And then I'm hyper secreting cortisol and insulin. Cortisol is the main stress hormone. Insulin will tend to track cortisol. Those two hormones, when secreted in excess, what do? They signal most human bodies to store weight, store fat, not build muscle, muscle being your calorie burning tissue. So, because of my fear of food to make me fat, I'm actually creating a self fulfilling metabolic prophecy because that fear is generating stress chemistry and stress physiology, which puts me in the exact hell that I don't wish to be in. And
Mhm.
on top of that, unnecessary stress. And I'm talking about self chosen stress. Like, yeah, you and I have normal and natural stress. There's the stresses of my aging parents, or the stress of money, or the stress of work, or the stress of kids going to school, whatever it is. So, those are normal, natural stresses. But there's optional and self chosen stressors. Food is my enemy. Closely related to that is appetite is my enemy. There's a lot of people, the moment they get hungry, they go into a stress response. Why? Because food is my enemy. But what makes me want to eat food? My appetite. And therefore, as soon as I sense hunger, I'm in a stress response. And once again, we go through that whole cascade of chemical events that actually causes me to put on weight, to store fat, to not build muscle. Now, here's another piece of the puzzle. Stress deregulates appetite. So when you and I are under stress, when we're in a stress response, a full blown stress response, you don't have an appetite. When a lion is chasing you, you're not thinking, maybe I should go get some chocolate. Maybe I should go get a slice of pizza. No, all your metabolic energy is thinking survival. So you don't have an appetite. What's interesting though is in normal day in and day out stress, it deregulates our appetite, but in a strange way, for a majority of people, it makes them more hungry. Part of that is because we want to mm, we want to move ourselves out of that stress response. We want to resolve the stress response because the brain knows a long-term stress response isn't good and it's not natural. In nature, when a lion's chasing you, something's going to happen within 2 minutes. It is going to either eat you, you're going to defeat it, or you're going to get away. So we're trying to resolve the stress response, and food, eating will literally resolve a stress response. If you're stressed out because of any reason and you eat a bunch of food, you're going to actually go into a relaxation response because the pleasure of food pleasure of anything catalyzes a relaxation response. Bad day at work,
Mm.
really stressed, your partner gives you a shoulder massage. You relax. Now, there's another piece of the puzzle. Cortisol, the main stress hormone, desensitizes us to pleasure. When you're running from the lion, you don't need to have feel good feelings. You need to have all your pain sensors very aware. Did I get bit? Am I cut? Am I bleeding? Am I in pain? Because that's going to let you know where you stand. So pain sensors are heightened in stress, pleasure sensors are blunted. So when you and I eat under stress, I actually need more of the chocolate cake to give me the pleasure I want had I been relaxed. If I'm relaxed and I eat the cake and I'm present and I'm there, I can get pleasure sensation and I can get stress reduction. But if I'm stressed out and I'm eating, I actually need to eat more food or more of a particular food to get the pleasure I'm seeking because my pleasure receptors are numbed.
Mm.
So, a long winded way of saying believing that food is my enemy or appetite is my enemy has a cascade of physiologic and chemical reactions that take us in the opposite direction of where we want to go. Um, Another toxic nutritional belief I think that impacts people is when we label foods as good or bad. This is a subtle one, but it actually impacts a lot of people. Here's what I mean. Most people have a list of good foods and bad foods. These are the foods that are good for me. These are the foods that are bad for me. And normally, if I'm in a room of, let's say, 100 people, and I ask them, what are the foods on your good list? People will say vegetables, or maybe grains, or maybe whole foods, or avocados, or coconuts. And then when I say, okay, call out some of your bad foods, everybody perks up and everybody gets all happy and they start yelling chocolate or sugar or whatever it is. So oftentimes the bad foods are the ones that make us feel good. So there's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance. But here's the thing, when you say to yourself, I can't eat that food, it's bad for me, or if I say to you, don't eat that food, it's bad for you, what people often hear is, I'm a bad person if I eat that food.
Mhm.
So if chocolate's on your bad list and you eat that food, what happens is a lot of people go, oh my God, I'm a bad person because I ate this bad food. And what do you do to bad people? You punish them. And how do you punish yourself from eating a bad food? People do this all the time. They punish themselves by saying, I'm not going to have anything for the next 5 weeks. I'm going to go on a limited diet. Or we'll punish ourselves by actually eating more of the bad food because I'm not supposed to do that. So that's a punishment. Or I'll punish myself with self rejection and negative self talk. Or a lot of people punish themselves, oddly enough, with exercise. There's a lot of people I see who don't exercise. They aren't exercising because they love movement. I love feeling good. I love feeling fit. They're exercising out of a punishment for eating, out of a
Wow.
punishment for having body fat. And so there's no joy in it. And they're actually in a stress response. And they're going to limit a lot of the positive effects of their exercise because they're in negative thinking, i.e., stress response, when they're doing their exercise because they're really self-punishing.
Jeez.
So
Wow.
instead of looking
That's
at foods
incredible.
as good or bad, they're not morally good or morally bad. Like sprouts don't have little halos around their head, and sugar has never conspired in an evil master plan to destroy your body. The food
Mm.
itself is morally it's neutral. So let's look at food as, these foods tend to enhance my health. These foods tend to detract from my health. I'm going to reach for foods that enhance my health because that's how I like to live. I'm going to tend to avoid foods that detract from my health because that's a value of mine. So I'm taking away the moral dilemma that can happen if I end up, going to a holiday dinner and eating something on my bad list. Something, I've never gotten killed at a holiday dinner. I've never died from eating something that I normally don't eat. The body overcomes it for most human beings. So
Mhm.
letting go of the moralism around food is often very liberating for people.
Are you suffering from gut issues, an autoimmune condition, chronic pain, imbalanced hormones, and you just can't seem to find a solution? Well, you're not alone. If you're listening to this podcast, you likely value your health, your well being, energy, and vitality. And at Food Matters, we believe that your body is worthy of good care and that there's nobody more suitably qualified to care for it than yourself, which is why we have created the Food Matters Nutrition Certification Program. This program is designed to improve and increase your knowledge when it comes to important topics around the gut, autoimmune conditions, balancing hormones, detoxification. Plus, it really has helped me cut through the confusion about what to eat and avoid when there's so many different dietary philosophies out there, from veganism to paleo to plant-based to whole foods to wild foods to qualitarian, who knows these days. We have assembled some of the brightest minds in nutrition and natural healing, including experts like David Wolfe, Dr. Libby Weaver, Mark Hyman, Dr. Alejandro Junger, and so many more. To find out more about how you can join us on this program and become a certified nutrition coach to help heal yourself, loved ones, or even help take this message to more people by working with people one-on-one or starting your own wellness business, you can find out more at foodmatters.com/study. Again, that's foodmatters.com/study.
Wow, this is so big. I think just even the way you framed the relationship to the negative foods, you're like, look, I'm going to tend to not eat those foods because they don't serve me. You didn't say I will never eat those foods or those foods are bad for me. Really profound language there. One other belief that I often see people have, which is maybe a little bit of the opposite of the two that you mentioned, which I think were very powerful and poignant examples, is where people say, but I just love food. I'm a lover of food. And they have this really like vivacious um, love declaration for food, but they eat toxic foods and they're unhealthy and they're stuck in this. They've got this, well, I'm just going to tell everybody that I love food, and that's maybe their excuse for hiding behind maybe not being in the most optimal health. I'm not sure. How do you find people that have this type of belief, or you don't see that as a problem unless it's impacting their health negatively?
I see it as a human being making a choice because I've heard this so many times. I've heard people say, listen, I'm going to die. You're going to die. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. I don't want to stop eating, McDonald's. I love McDonald's. I'm not going to stop eating steak, 4 times a week. I love steaks, whatever it is. I love this. I'm going to die anyway. And everybody gets sick. So, and I think to myself, that's actually sounds to me like a willful choice. That's a deliberate choice. This person is choosing how they wish to live their life. It's personally not my value. That's not how I wish to live. That's not what makes me like if I ate what other people ate, I wouldn't feel so good. So, unless somebody came to me and said, "Hey Mark, I need some help here.
Hmm.
I want to be healthy. I want to eat healthy, but there's this part of me that just so loves food and I don't know what to do." Now, if they present that dilemma, then there's a possibility for a conversation. But if there's not a problem for them, it's not a problem for me. I
Yeah.
wish they would make a different choice because I like seeing people do healthy things. But I'm not the master of the nutritional universe. I can't make those decisions for people. But usually, when somebody comes to me with that issue and say, I just love food, but I want to be healthier and I want to lose weight, but I just want to eat. Normally, for most cases, what's operating in that person is the old, ancient, and actually very young part of us that seeks instant gratification. Meaning, when you and I were tiny infants and we're screaming and we're yelling because we're uncomfortable or we're hungry, how does mama know you're hungry? Because you're screaming and you're yelling like a little infant does. And the moment mama comes with bottle or breast, in an instant, that infant relaxes. That infant is happy because it's getting fed, it's getting touched, it's getting held, it's getting loved, it's getting sung to. And to the infant's still undeveloped nervous system, it's all experience is one. Mother is love, love is touch, food is love, mother is food. It's all one beautiful experience. And so we have the memory from a young age, feel bad, get some food, feel better. It's literally in our DNA. You don't need, we are born with that. It's
Hmm.
every person that came before you, every generation that came before you had that cellular memory. Feel bad, eat food, feel better. And we have that cellular memory that when I get what I want, exactly what I want it, when I want it, then I'm good. So what happens is, as young children, we hopefully eventually learn that, you can't scream for ice cream at every meal. You can't scream for birthday cake at every meal. It's not going to happen because the adults in your world are going to teach you delayed gratification. They're going to teach you future consequences. If we eat like that, we're going to have problems. So we don't do that. Now, a lot of us don't really graduate so easy from instant gratification. So as adults, I want what I want when I want it. I want to feel good when I say I want to feel good. So give me alcohol, give me drugs, give me whatever it is that takes me out of my discomfort and gives me instant gratification, future consequences be damned. So that person actually needs to learn how to work with the part of them, that young voice that wants instant gratification. And what we need to do is to invoke the adult voice in us, the king or the
Mm.
queen in us, to sit at the head of the table. Because otherwise, it's like a 5-year-old sitting at the head of the table when we make our choices with food. Or it's a 10-year
Wow.
old, or it's a 15-year-old who just like, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you just taught me an enormous amount right then around instant gratification. I thought this was something that we developed later on as an advanced society after World War II because we're like, I've got a headache. I want a headache pill. I want food. I'll go through a drive-through restaurant. I thought this was because of the modern civilization and less because of crying and receiving this immediate response from the mother. But that's such a beautiful and poignant example. So great.
I think to your point, though, James, I think modern civilization has put instant gratification on steroids for all the reasons that you said, because we are constantly offered quick fixes. So, yeah, give me the drugs and take away all my pain and discomfort.
It's true. We live now in an age that glorifies instant gratification, and it's something that's expected. We want 100% return on our investments in 1 year. We want the headache to disappear. We want, an instant manifestation. And we want to move away from having to work for that. And I think that's really intriguing and interesting that actually ties back to something that we experienced in our youth. Tell me how I've worked through with food so many different phases of my journey, and now I'm in a phase where I eat really great quality food, and every now and then I will eat less good quality food with love. And, I've worked really hard to develop a healthy relationship with unhealthy food because I don't want to have, like you said, an unhealthy relationship with unhealthy food that's only going to cause me more stress. So, how do people move away from like guilt and shame around eating something? Because I see this pattern of, well, like you said earlier, where people will go into like high intensity, beat themselves up workout regimes as a form of punishment for having a blowout summer or a bad Thanksgiving. How do people start to mitigate that guilt and shame? Because sometimes it's inherent because they got it from their parents. And so that's their pattern in life. that they receive shame or guilt from their parents, so they go and do it to themselves. But how can people reduce it in relation to food and lifestyle choices?
Yes, great question. I often think of this in the frame of we can get trapped in all or nothing thinking, all or nothing consciousness, all or nothing approach to diet. So the all or nothing approach is I'm either eating 100% dairy free, gluten free, no sugar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or the moment I stray from that, all hell's going to break loose. And I'm going to just party hard and I'm going to trash my body. And it's almost like you're driving down the road and instead of staying in your lane, you're swerving in every direction. You're still getting down the road, but woof, that's not a fun ride. And it's very imbalancing and it has us being ineffective human beings. Because if you're living in all or nothing consciousness with food, it has to affect the rest of your life because so much energy is going into essentially a form of perfectionism. Perfectionism means, and this is a toxic dietary and life belief, I need to be perfect. My diet needs to be perfect. And we invent what we think the perfect diet should be. I need to eat perfectly paleo, perfectly keto, perfectly vegan, perfectly raw food, whatever it is. And if I'm doing it perfectly, I'm good. And if I stray, I'm bad. But when I stray, all hell breaks loose.
Mm.
And it's an immature approach to our life experience. It's a more childlike approach. And once again, it's calling for us to make a different choice. First of all, it's calling for us to let go of perfect because we're messy human beings. We're imperfect. If we were perfect, I don't know that we'd be here. Um, we go through challenges. We get ill. People around us get sick. We have challenges. We have emotional breakdowns. Life gives us all kinds of interesting pains and sufferings that we, are being asked to grow into. So life isn't perfect. And why should our diet be perfect? Because it holds us to a place where we're bound to fail. And then when I fail, I punish myself. It's like a fall from perfect grace. I've fallen out of heaven and now I have to go to hell. And hell means no rules. So we have to notice that we're doing that. In answer to your question, I have to notice that I'm doing that and I have to choose a different way. Here's a different way. As an example, I'm going to eat 90% of what I think is good for me foods, 95%, 80%. I don't know, pick a number. Pick a number that's kind of better what maybe you've been doing or that's more doable for you. So
Mm.
if I'm eating 90% like foods from my this is good for me, healthy for me list, and if okay, on the weekend I get to have my ice cream, I get to have my dessert, I get to have my slice of pizza, when you get to that dessert or you get to that pizza, here's what you do. You put yourself in the optimum state of digestion and assimilation and calorie burning, which happens to be the physiologic relaxation response, parasympathetic nervous system dominance. That's how we're designed.
Mm.
Digestion is literally an on and off switch. When the relaxation response is turned on, full healthy digestion, assimilation, and calorie burning is turned on. When full blown stress is turned on, digestion is completely turned off. So, according to biology, it behooves us, it compels us that no matter what you're going to eat, put yourself in a physiologic relaxation response. Now, remember, pleasure catalyzes a relaxation response, stress inhibits it. So, if I agree with myself, I'm going to get all the pleasure that I'm seeking from the McDonald's hamburger, then I'm receiving it. I'm in a relaxation response, which is my optimum state of digestion and assimilation, which probability wise gives me the best chance to overcome what's ever in that food. Because if there's toxins in that food, if there are any bacteria hitching a ride on that food, guess what? The majority of the immune tissue in the body is in your gut, it's in your digestive tract. That's your first line of immune defense because any toxin, any creature can hitch a ride on your food. Well, it just so happens that stress suppresses the immune system. So if I go into stressful thinking, oh my God, this food, I can't believe I'm eating it. It's no good for me. It's bad. It's going to make me fat. It's going to make me toxic. It's got gluten in it. I'm putting myself in a stress response. I'm suppressing my immune system, which means I'm making my digestive system more susceptible to whatever my immune system would normally overcome in that food.
Mm.
So if you're going to eat the food that's on your bad list, you have to just do it with gusto. You have to let go. You have to channel your inner Italian, your inner French person, and just enjoy.
Wow. I mean, Mark, what an incredible idea. And, I think it's really uh, profound. I know that Dr. Libby Weaver, she talks about this idea of rest, digest, repair, and then there's stress, and it's binary, it's on or off. You cannot be resting and digesting and stressed out at the same time. And the problem is we're bringing our stress everywhere with us. And like you said, then people even look at a meal and say, "Oh my God, that's got this in it. I'm stressed out. I'm not eating it." And that takes you out of that digestive phase as well. What are some of the other rituals or practices or mental approaches that you might recommend to people uh, to reduce stress, to become more mindful when eating, um, so that they can be in a better state to digest, whether it's the 80% good food or the 20% bad food? What are some of your key recommendations?
I think if I can only give one, this would be it, which is to agree with yourself and practice with yourself to eat every meal slowly and sensually with awareness and with presence as if it was the last meal that you're ever going to have on earth and you want to suck all the experience out of it. You want to have the best meal ever. You want to just feel good. And what happens is the simple act of eating fast puts the body in a stress response. So, for
Mm.
whatever, well, there's actually reasons, interesting reasons. The brain considers fast eating a stressor. In nature, if you watch carnivores, if a carnivore, a lion, hyena makes a kill, all of a sudden you have every other carnivore starts to come around and trying to get in on the thing that you're about to eat. So, animals are often eating in a stress response because there's something going on. So a lot of times an animal has to eat quickly. I'm talking about a carnivore. Um, so the brain, the human brain, the moment you eat fast, you go into a stress response. Now we live in a fast food world. Not just that the food itself is fast food, but we've been trained by the world, many of us, to eat fast. So fast food is not just the type of food; it's the style of eating. So
Mm.
what happens is when we eat quickly, not only is the body in a stress response, which means I'm blunted to pleasure, which means I need to eat more food to experience the pleasure that I'm looking for. My appetite is deregulated, creating more insulin and cortisol. I'm decreasing my digestion and assimilation, which means increasing nutrient excretion. So not only is that happening, but the brain is requiring experience. So something scientists call the cephalic phase digestive response. Cephalic means of the head. So the cephalic phase digestive response is simply a fancy term for taste, pleasure, aroma, satisfaction, and the visuals of a meal. Scientists will estimate when you look at the sum total of all the research on the cephalic phase or the head phase of digestion, you think about your favorite food, your mouth starts to water. You look at a delicious meal, your stomach starts to churn. So that's digestion beginning in the mind.
Mm.
Um, so when we don't get that head phase of digestion, The brain says, and you eat a big meal. I don't know, a lot of people have had the experience. You eat a big meal, you eat it fast, you don't pay attention, you're talking, you're watching TV, whatever you're doing, and all of a sudden your belly's full, but my mouth is hungry. I'm hungry. And the gut brain and the head brain are kind of talking it out, and gut brain is saying, I'm distended, stomach distended, full. Head brain says, I don't remember taste or pleasure or aroma or satisfaction or experience. And the brain screams hungry, and the head brain usually wins out.
Mm.
So the act of eating fast does not give us the pleasure that we're seeking from food. It doesn't give us the pain reduction that we're seeking from hunger. And so we'll tend to reach for more. And we're never truly satisfied. And there's always sort of a background hunger. And chances are, if you're moving through food too quickly, you might be moving through other places in life too quickly. I had a client once. I said, I really want you to slow down with meals. He had intense digestive issues, and was on every drug. They tried everything, nothing worked. I said, it's really simple. I said, if this was reality TV and I could win $10 million to help you get rid of your digestion within 2 weeks, I would just turn you from being this amazingly fast eater into a slow eater. And here's what happened. He came back a couple of weeks later. He said, my heartburn is completely gone, first time in 15 years. He said, but that's not even what I'm happy about. He said, I realize that I'm that guy. I don't pay attention. My wife constantly
Mm.
complains that I don't listen. My wife complains that I'm not present with the kids. And he said, as soon as I got present with food, I realized I'm not present in much of my life. I just move so fast. And it changed his world. So oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes the way we do food is the way we do other parts of life. So that's why I like to think that it's helpful for whatever you're doing in your relationship with food, whatever your challenges. It might be weight, it might be cravings, it might be overeating or binging emotionally, and whatever it is, look at food as a great teacher. So that's my key principle in eating psychology. Your relationship with food, our relationship with food is a great teacher. It's teaching us. So if you and I are good students, we're going to listen and be curious. What is this teaching me? Which means I got to ask questions. I might have to do some experiments. I might have to do a little trial and error and trial and success. I might have to look in the mirror and say, what is this emotional eating challenge asking of me? Well, it's always going to be asking us to learn other ways to regulate my emotions other than just food. And that requires me stepping up as a human being. That requires me doing work on self. There's no quick fix. There's no easy answer. Here's the pill to take. Or just, make this smoothie recipe and it's all going to go away. Like, no, there's a little bit of work involved, and that work is work on self, and that's some of the most beautiful work in the world.
Wow, Mark. I mean, you're covering so much ground here, and one of the big things is this idea that food is a teacher, but in particular the way that we approach food. Because what hit home for me is that I used to eat fast, and I used to have indigestion. This was before I started studying nutrition and learning about food, and and yeah, that really hit home for me. And I think what you spoke about is the way that we approach food, is the way that we approach other areas of our life, I think is so profound. I mean, when you've worked with people, and this is probably a final sort of closing remark, if people start to up level their relationship to food, where do they see other improvements in their life? Like, obviously, in their body, I guess, is one, but what other results have you had with clients where you've seen, they've changed a relationship with their food, and then that's flowed over into other areas of their life. Because you mentioned that with this one client, but I'd love to just hear what other correlations you find, because you're speaking about food as this great teacher, and I'd love for you to just close with this remark in terms of how changing this relationship can expand out into these other areas of life that people might want help with.
Beautiful question. Here's some big things I've noticed when people begin to transform, to up level their relationship with food, to really start to learn what food and their relationship with food and body are teaching them. A lot of people notice that, and they already know that I'm constantly worrying about food. I'm thinking about food all the time. I'm worried about body fat. I'm worried about if I eat this, I shouldn't eat that. This is going to affect this. That's going to affect that. I'm constantly thinking about food. I'm constantly worried about it. Well, when food is occupying so much of your brain and your mind and your thought time, then you are spending a lot of life force thinking about food. And that's life force that's not going into fill in the blank, your
Mm.
relationship, your parenting, your work, your creativity, your self expression. So many times I've had clients, particularly female clients, who will say to me, as soon as I started relaxing around food more and letting go of my rules, and I was able to let go of food worry, I found that I had a better relationship with my husband, with my partner. Because previously, if you're thinking about food all the time, you're essentially sleeping with food. You're not really sleeping with the person next to you. And because that's what you're obsessing about, that's what's got you. If I'm constantly worrying about my weight and weighing myself 3 times a day, and my weight, my weight, my weight, I want to lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds because I want to be perfect, that is killing intimacy. That's killing your ability to experience pleasure in life, because what we're saying is, until I lose weight, I cannot be happy. When I lose weight, I will be happy. When I have the ideal body, I will be happy. When I eat my perfect diet perfectly, then I'll be happy. So essentially, what I'm saying to myself and the universe is, I cannot be happy now. So
Mm.
therefore, I'm not happy now. And when we hold up the mirror to that, oh my goodness, I'm putting happiness off into the future. Yeah, you can work on weight loss. That's fine. But you can happy yourself into weight loss. You can dance yourself into weight loss. You can love your body into weight loss. You can pleasure yourself into weight loss, as opposed to beat yourself up along the journey. Why would we want to lose weight? Why would we want to say, I want to eat better? It's because we want to be happy. We think this is going to make me happy. Well, if I'm beating myself up along the way because I'm not eating perfect or I'm not weighing perfect and I'm hating myself, how could a journey of self attack, self rejection possibly end up in a destination of, and now I'm happy?
Mm.
I've never had a single person or client say to me, I hated on myself for years and one day I just woke up and I was thin and healthy and happy. Like, no, the journey tends to inform the destination. So let's change how we do our journey with food and body and get some of the end results that we expect in the future. Let's have them now. So treat your body more kindly now. Give it more pleasure now. Love it or even like it more now. Adorn it more now. You know, exercise it in a way that your body loves to move instead of punish yourself with exercise.
Wow, Mark, so beautiful. I love this analogy. Love your way into weight loss, pleasure yourself into transformation, even pleasuring yourself into all other areas of life, into more success, into deeper intimacy, into a deeper connection and presence, as opposed to berating yourself or seeing it as a problem, loving yourself into this new expanded awareness. So beautiful. What a great way to finish. I'm literally just uh loving that idea and analogy, Mark. You're a tremendous force for good. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And I think there is so much in this conversation, and it could flow forever into deeper and deeper caverns of insight. And I'd love for you to continue to share more with our community, and for us to keep sharing more and collaborating on this message, because I know so many people, including a dear friend of mine, John Gabriel, who's experienced a lot of transformation around first transforming his mind, and then the body transformation came. And I think the way that you're able to communicate this message is just so profound. So thank you, Mark. I look forward to connecting with you again in deeper ways. And for people that want to find out more about Mark and his work, make sure to check out The Psychology of Eating and his books, Nourishing Wisdom and The Slow Down Diet. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks so much, James, and thanks for all your kind words.
For everything that we've mentioned in today's episode, you can check out the show notes. There will be links and information there for you. And before I go, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to invest in yourself and be here for this podcast. If there's anybody that you can think of who could benefit from this information, please make sure to share it with them. We believe in the power of life-changing information, and it's especially powerful when it's shared from a trusted source. And finally, if you could leave us a comment or make sure to subscribe to the podcast, we would greatly appreciate that. It helps us continue to bring you this life-changing information, and make sure that you get all future podcast updates sent to you. Have a beautiful day, and thank you once again.